Roger Federer's accidental confession about Alex Eala has detonated across the tennis universe like a bombshell nobody anticipated. The greatest player to ever hold a racket just revolts something he was never supposed to say out loud. What music began as an ordinary sit-down transformed into the most explosive revelation of the season. One unguarded moment, one slip that shattered the silence around a connection no journalist knew existed. And now the entire sport is demanding answers. What has Federer been hiding about this young Filipino sensation? The confession wasn't planned. The fallout absolutely catastrophic. The setting seemed innocent enough. A renowned Swiss sports network invited Roger Federer for what appeared to be another standard retrospective, discussing his legendary career, analyzing music modern tennis, celebrating his retirement legacy. Nothing suggested the conversation would veer into dangerous territory. Federer arrived looking relaxed, almost carefree. The interviewer opened with predictable nostalgia. Wimbledon glories, epic Nadal battles, the emotional farewell at the Lever Cup. Standard fare for a champion who'd already said his goodbyes to professional competition. The atmosphere radiated warmth, familiarity, safety. Then came the pivot. "Roger, you've always had an eye for emerging talent," the interviewer mentioned casually. "Who excites you in women's tennis right now?" A seemingly harmless question, the type Federer had answered countless times before with diplomatic praise for obvious names. Fiat, Gal, Sabalina. Generic enough to avoid controversy, vague enough to satisfy curiosity without creating headlines. But this time, something shifted in his expression. Federer hesitated, not the smooth media pause of a careful ambassador. This was different, genuine, conflicted, as if weighing whether to open a door he deliberately kept locked. His eyes narrowed slightly, his jaw tightened. Anyone watching closely would have recognized the internal battle happening in real time. "There's someone," he started, then stopped himself. The Discover More Translate video player integration translation tools and resources interviewer leaned forward, sensing blood in the water. Professional instinct kicked in. This wasn't music, scripted territory anymore. "There's a player I've been following for almost 3 years now. Music. Someone most people don't talk about yet. Someone I've been involved with behind the scenes." The room temperature changed instantly. "Alex Eala," he said, letting the name hang in the air like a confession at trial. "I've been mentoring her privately, giving technical advice, watching her matches, connecting her with my former coaches, things I haven't done for anyone else outside my own academy." The interviewer's face betrayed complete shock. This wasn't public knowledge. Nobody in tennis media had reported any relationship between the Swiss maestro and the rising Filipino star. No leaked training sessions, no social media hints, nothing. Federer realized immediately, music. What he'd done. His expression flickered with something resembling regret or perhaps liberation. The secret was out. There was no walking it back. "I probably shouldn't have said that," with a nervous laugh that did nothing to diffuse the magnitude of what had just escaped his lips. Too late. Within 17 minutes, the clip circulated across every tennis platform imaginable. Twitter erupted. Instagram exploded. Reddit threads multiplied like wildfire. The tennis community demanded explanations. Journalists scrambled to verify details. Eala's name, previously familiar only to hardcore followers, music, of lower-tier tournaments, suddenly dominated global sports headlines. Why would Roger Federer, the sport's most revered figure, secretly invest himself in an unranked player from the Philippines? What did he see that everyone else missed? And why the secrecy? The accidental confession had opened Pandora's box, and the questions flooding out threatened to reshape everything the tennis world thought it understood about both Federer's retirement activities and Eala's improbable journey toward relevance. But here's what nobody knew yet. Music. Federer's involvement with Eala wasn't random. The real reason goes deeper than talent. Music. And when the full truth emerged, it would challenge everything fans believed about the sport's biggest icon. The interview didn't end with that bombshell admission. If anything, Federer, perhaps feeling he'd already crossed the point of no return, decided to elaborate further, pulling back curtains on a mentorship nobody knew existed. "I first noticed Alex during the 2022 U.S. Open Juniors," Federer revealed, his tone shifting from regretful to almost protective. "She had this quality, not just skill, but mental architecture. The way she constructed points reminded me of players from a different era. Calculated, patient, lethal when opportunities appeared. He described reaching out through music mutual connections, offering technical feedback after studying her match footage. What started as occasional observations evolved into regular video analysis sessions. Federer would dissect her footwork, her serve mechanics, her tactical decision-making under pressure. The same forensic approach he'd applied to his own game throughout his career. I connected her with Pierre Paganini, my fitness coach. Federer referencing the man who'd kept him competitive into his 40s. I introduced her to Severin Luthi, who coached me for 2 decades. I even arranged for her to train at my academy in Switzerland for 2 weeks last summer, completely off the record. No media, no announcements. The revelations kept cascading. Private court sessions, nutrition guidance, mental performance coaching, equipment sponsorship assistance. Federer had essentially constructed a shadow development program around Eala, leveraging his entire professional network to accelerate her evolution, all while maintaining absolute silence about the arrangement. Why her? The interviewer pressed, voicing the question screaming through millions of viewers' minds. Music, Federer's answer cut straight to the core. Because everyone overlooks her. She's from a country without tennis infrastructure. She doesn't have the funding other prospects enjoy. She's fighting a system designed to favor players from established tennis nations. I saw myself in that struggle. Not the privileged champion people remember, but the young player who needed someone to believe in him before the world did. That comparison stunned observers. Federer, born in Switzerland, raised with access to world-class training, supported by a federation with resources, drawing parallels to a Filipino athlete battling for recognition from an archipelago nation with minimal tennis tradition. Critics immediately attacked the analogy as tone-deaf, disconnected from reality. But Federer doubled down. Talent alone never guaranteed anything in my career. I succeeded because people invested in me before results justified that investment. Tony Rose saw potential when I was undisciplined and emotional. Peter Carter believed when I was losing junior matches. Alex deserves that same faith. Then he made a prediction that sent music shockwaves through professional tennis. Within 3 years, she'll break into the top music 30. Within 5, she'll reach a Grand Slam quarterfinal. I'm staking my reputation on that assessment. Coming from arguably the greatest player in history, those words carried apocalyptic music weight. Federer rarely made public predictions about specific athletes. His endorsement could manufacture opportunities. Wild card entries, sponsorship attention, media coverage that might otherwise take years to earn organically. But it also painted an enormous target on Alex Eala's back. Expectations that previously didn't exist now loomed like storm clouds. Every tournament would be measured against Federer's prophecy. Every loss would fuel skepticism about whether his judgment had finally failed him. Social media fractured instantly into tribal camps. Supporters celebrated Federer's generosity, praising his willingness to leverage influence for an underdog cause. Detractors accused him of creating unrealistic pressure, potentially sabotaging Eala's development by thrusting her into spotlights she wasn't prepared to handle. Tennis insiders expressed bewilderment. Agents scrambled to understand how this relationship had remained hidden for years. Competing players wondered if Federer had offered similar secret support to others, or if Eala represented something uniquely compelling. And at the center of this hurricane sat Alex Eala herself, about to discover that her private journey had just become devastatingly, irrevocably public. Federer's confession raised one burning question nobody could answer. Who exactly is Alex Eala? And what did this teenager from Manila possess that convinced tennis royalty to risk his carefully guarded legacy? Alexandra Montgo Aya wasn't born into tennis privilege. No family dynasty, no generational wealth funding private no federation infrastructure guaranteeing international competition access. She emerged from circumstances that statistically should have prevented her from ever threatening professional tennis relevance. Born in May 2005 in Quezon City, Philippines, Aya represented a nation where basketball dominates cultural attention and music resources. Tennis existed as an afterthought, a sport for affluent families with country club memberships, not a viable path toward athletic excellence. The Philippines had never produced a Grand Slam singles champion, never developed a top 50 ranked player in the modern era. The infrastructure simply didn't exist. Yet somehow, this girl from Manila began demolishing junior competition with frightening efficiency. By age 14, she'd relocated to Spain, enrolling at the Rafa Nadal Academy, a move requiring financial sacrifices most families couldn't fathom. Her parents, both athletes themselves, recognized raw potential that demanded cultivation beyond what their home country could provide. The investment was astronomical. The odds of professional success remained microscopically small. Justified their faith rapidly. She captured the 2020 Australian Open Girls Doubles title. Then the 2021 French Open Girls Doubles Championship. Then in 2022, the US Open Girls Singles crown, making her the first Filipino to achieve that milestone. These weren't flukes. These were systematic dismantlings of supposedly superior competition. But junior success rarely translates to professional dominance. Tennis history overflows with junior champions who vanished into obscurity once confronting the brutal realities of the main tour. Different physicality, different mental demands, different level of tactical sophistication required. Eala understood this better than most. She'd watched promising talents' music flame out spectacularly, crushed by pressure or exposed technical weaknesses once facing mature competition. She knew her junior accomplishments meant nothing without successful transition. That's where Federer's involvement became transformative. According to sources who spoke anonymously after his confession, Federer didn't just offer generic encouragement. He provided forensic analysis of her game's vulnerabilities, the exact deficiencies that would prevent her from surviving professional competition. Her serve, while effective against juniors, lacked the pace and placement necessary to dominate WTA opponents. Her movement, though solid, needed refinement to handle the angles elite players would create. Her mental approach, while competitive, required hardening to withstand the psychological warfare awaiting her. Federer's network addressed each weakness systematically. Paganini redesigned her fitness program, adding explosive power without sacrificing the flexibility crucial for her defensive capabilities. Luthi restructured her practice routines, emphasizing situational pattern recognition rather than mindless repetition. Nutritionists optimized her recovery, protocols. Sports psychologists taught her visualization techniques Federer himself had employed during crucial matches. Most critically, Federer gave her something no amount of coaching could manufacture. Belief that her background didn't determine her ceiling. He told me, the best players aren't born. They're constructed through relentless attention to detail, Eala revealed in a rare interview months before Federer's confession. She didn't name him then, respecting the privacy he'd requested. But the philosophy clearly originated from their conversations. Talent opens doors. Discipline keeps them open. Yet questions lingered about Federer's motivations. Why invest such extraordinary effort into someone with minimal professional results? Why maintain secrecy instead of publicizing his charitable involvement? Why risk his carefully cultivated legacy on an unproven commodity? Some cynics suggested calculated image rehabilitation, positioning himself as a magnanimous elder statesman rather than a retired champion fading into irrelevance. Others theorized he sought vicarious fulfillment through Eala's career, replacing the competitive void retirement created. But those close to Federer offered a simpler explanation. He genuinely believed she possessed something rare, something worth protecting from the toxic ecosystem that destroys fragile talent before it matures. Roger sees tennis becoming homogenized, explained a former Federer coach who requested anonymity. Everyone trained in the same eyes using identical techniques producing interchangeable playing styles. Alex represents something different. A unique problem-solving approach shaped, by her unconventional path. He wants that diversity to survive. Whether Federer's endorsement proves prophetic or delusional remains uncertain, but his confession guaranteed one outcome. Eala's journey would unfold under unprecedented scrutiny with every stumble analyzed through the lens of whether tennis's greatest champion had finally miscalculated. Federer's endorsement should have been pure celebration. Instead, it triggered a firestorm of criticism that threatened to destroy everything he tried to build. The backlash was swift, brutal, and deeply personal. The tennis community's reaction split violently along fault lines nobody anticipated. What should have been a heartwarming story about mentorship and opportunity instead ignited accusations of favoritism, privilege, and systemic inequity. Critics launched immediate attacks questioning Federer's judgment and ethics. Why Eala specifically? Hundreds of talented players struggled without support. Why did she deserve access to resources others could only fantasize about? The questions carried undertones of suspicion, suggestions that factors beyond merit influenced his decision. Social media became a battlefield. Music hashtags trended demanding transparency about the relationship's origins. Music. Conspiracy theories proliferated suggesting family connections or business arrangements motivated Federer's involvement. Some speculated financial incentives that Federer held undisclosed investment stakes in Eala's future earnings. Other players' representatives expressed frustration through carefully worded statements. One Eastern European coach whose athlete competed directly against Eala and juniors posted, "Interesting how some receive royal treatment while others grind alone. Makes you wonder what truly determines who gets opportunities."